I wanted, I was looking at Facebook the other day, and I saw a post from Valerie Brown, who is a Dharma teacher. She teaches often up in Spirit Rock. And she mentioned that January 22nd was the third anniversary of the death of Thich Nhat Hanh. And she posted a quote, which I really liked. And it said, "There is not one action or ritual that will bring you liberation. Liberation requires continual practice, continual commitment to mindfulness, concentration, and insight." Especially right now, because it speaks so much to our culture. We live in a culture of instant gratification. We live in a culture that wants the answer right now. Tell me the one thing to do that will fix it, or 10 steps. I'll go max 10 steps, or 6 weeks, and then that's my parameter. And then it needs to be fixed. And we have this mindset, and whether it's conscious or not, it's that thing. It's like when you set a New Year's resolution and you haven't gotten to where you wanted to be by February 14th, then it's like, forget it. But this practice, this invitation is to recognize that this is a long journey. This is not instantaneous. And that's why folks don't stick around the practice. They'll come to meditation class, they'll sit for a while, they'll have some flavor of ease. But then for those of you who've been practicing for a while, you know, when you really get into the practice, all that stuff, when the mind is still, that stuff that's been buried, that you've been smushing down for a really long time, starts to bubble up. And you have the choice of saying, oh, can I be with this really painful emotion, this old story that brings up a lot, this grief that maybe I've never looked at? Or do I say, that's not working, and on to the next thing? So people bounce. You see, they'll try meditation and they'll bounce over to, oh, that's not working. I'll go to yoga, or I'll go to this, or I'll go to that, instead of really spending the time to be with the practice, which is when you have the opening. It takes time to disentangle from our conditioning. We didn't get here overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight. Um, you know, but we keep looking for that one big thing that will fix it. It's a process, though. It's moment by moment, breath by breath. What is this? What's going on here? And can I be with this? And when we slow down and make space, then different, instead of being stuck on a particular idea, like it's supposed to be this, like I have so many people when I do intro to meditation and I ask folks why they came. So many say, I want to bliss out, which is like checking out. I mean, you do have moments of bliss, but you can have moments of bliss anytime. But if you're searching, it has to be this, we miss out on what else there is. So when we can make space, release the idea of should and have to, then we make space for what is, which may not be what we think it's supposed to be, but which is its own gift, which is its own freedom and liberation. I saw Thich Nhat Hanh way back in the early 90s in Santa Monica. And he and his monks and nuns came walking in and they were chanting, and the chanting was breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. And they came and they all sat on the stage and they kept it up, breathing in, breathing out. And I remember going, all right, I got it. What? Come on. And then I realized, thinking now, it's like, oh, that's it. It's just breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. We think there's something else. But he has a book. He wrote a book, Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a book called Peace is Every Breath, where it's about mindfulness when you brush your teeth and mindfulness when you do the dishes. It's not out there. It's how we move through the world. It's how we move through our lives, being present. There's not one particular action. There's not one retreat. that you're going to go on that's going to do it. It's the continual continuity of mindfulness. And I was thinking about this last week, and I was thinking about after the fires, there was this, what do we do? How do we do this? And thinking, and I heard a lot of people say it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's like, what do we need right now? How do we show up right in this moment? And it was so beautiful. I live very close to Pasadena, Altadena, and I know a lot of people who are deeply impacted and lost a lot in the fires. And it's heartbreaking. But to see how folks came together and the grassroots response was just so beautiful. It's like, what do we need right now? And then now there's bigger picture and stuff, but it's a marathon, which is not what our society is used to. We want the sprint, we want the fix. I mean, I was even remembering when my brother died many years ago, and my sister-in-law, I talked to her and she'd say, people don't want to hear that I'm still grieving. It's like, because they don't want to hear it. It's like, it's uncomfortable for me to hear that you're uncomfortable. So how do we take care of this? How do we make that go away? So we hide things, but that doesn't do anything. The practice is to be with. There's no one thing that's going to fix it out there. And then Monday, we had the inauguration, and now we've had all the chaos that's happening since then. And I was thinking back on after the election, my inbox was full of emails. Here's what we're doing. Here's the 10 things we're doing. Here's this, here's that. And I was going to read all of them. And then I realized, deleted all of them. And it said, we have to wait and see. We have to wait and see. We're going to see what's happening today. What's the response? There's no, you fix it. This'll fix it. That's nuts. It doesn't work that way. It's hard work. It's being still. It's organizing. It's doing the next indicated thing. It's commitment, and it doesn't mean we have to do everything. It's cultivating patience. It's cultivating non-harming. How do we take care of that? And practice is so perfect for this moment. It teaches us to be open to the reality. Okay, what's happening? What's the reality? What's in front of us? And then I saw another quote this week from Milarepa, who he was a Tibetan sage, and he lived over 900 years ago, a little over 900 years ago. And he said, the affairs of the world will go on forever. Do not delay the practice of meditation. And I was thinking, oh yeah, the affairs of the world will go on forever. The Buddha taught us that, 2,500 years ago. Greed, hatred, delusion, ignorance, it's rampant and causes so much harm. But I have found that my practice has given me the foundation to greet that insanity, to greet greed, hatred, and delusion. It's a steadiness that gives me, as I said, this foundation, this clarity about moving forward, this clarity about how to be present in this moment. Liberation doesn't come by waiting for things to get better. It comes in this moment. There's a freedom right here. I mentioned at the outset, seeing the clouds and the sky and the rainbow as I was driving in, and the liberation of being present, the freedom of the joy, experiencing the joy and seeing that. It's like beautiful. Be here now. One breath at a time. Right now it's like this. And how are you taking care of yourself? And this week I've been acknowledging this discomfort. Actually, I noticed it's gone. I think yesterday I realized, but for a couple of days there was felt like a load of heavy bread dough sitting in my solar plexus. It was just like, okay, it's there. I see you. You're there. I feel you. I'm going to go about my business, recognizing this heaviness. It's just like a few years ago when Me Too really was exploding, and there was this anger that showed up, and it just hung out in my chest for a few months. And I'm not, that's not my go-to. Anger is not my go-to. Running away is my go-to. Fight, flight, or freeze, flight all the time. And so this anger was hanging out there, and I went, wow, okay. But to acknowledge the reality of our experience, to acknowledge what's right here, allows us to have agency over it. We call the shots. We don't let it call the shots. When we go, no, you can't be here. No, you're not allowed. No, anger's not, I'm not allowed to feel anger. I'm not allowed to feel rage. I'm not allowed to feel any of these things. And we stuff them down and they show up anyway. We can't help the emotions that show up: anger, grief, rage, sadness, whatever it is. Hi, here you are. Hi. Make space. That's the practice, the invitation in practice. Make space for what's here. When we're fighting it, we're constricted. There's no space. And fighting reality, fighting what's actually here doesn't really work, because we're just kicking the can down the block, and it just doesn't work, you know? So there's also an onslaught of info right now, and that makes me remember I guess it's Thich Nhat Hanh week. That makes me remember Thich Nhat Hanh's his take on the fifth precept, which is to avoid drugs and alcohol, which lead to intoxication, which lead to heedlessness and mindlessness. His fifth precept is drugs and alcohol, but watch what you read, watch what you listen to, watch what you hear, watch what you ingest in all the sense doors. Take care of yourself. Our nervous systems are not equipped to manage the onslaught of information. We haven't evolved yet. So, and then I remembered this other quote that was actually a few years ago. I watched this, a documentary on Amy Winehouse, the singer who died of alcoholism. And she had done a duet with Tony Bennett, and they were talking to Tony Bennett, the singer, and he said this line: life teaches us how to live it if we let it. And I thought that was really profound. Life teaches us how to live it if we let it. If we let go of the shoulds and the have tos and just open to the moment, if we make space for the reality of our lives, instead of chasing the one thing, which changes, because often we get that one thing and it's not quite right. We need that other thing. And then that other thing. And it wasn't good enough, and maybe over here, or you didn't do it right, or I didn't do it right, you know? And we learn how to take care of ourselves. And then last week, I was kind of in the same vein. I was thinking about last week, and I do a Dharma talk in my own little sangha Thursdays and Saturdays, and I was talking about these states of mind. I heard a talk by Larry Ward, who's one of my favorite teachers, and he talked about the states of mind. If you're familiar with Buddhist cosmology, they talk about these realms of rebirth, and they're the hell realm and the hungry ghost realm, which I think it can be thought of as a place of taking rebirth based on your actions in your current life, or it's also a state of mind, or how you feel in this existence based on how you're living your life. A hell realm is where it's just miserable. You can get the idea by the name of it. But I like the next one they talk about is the hungry ghost realm, which are these beings that are insatiable. These big heads, big faces, and little teeny mouths that just can't get enough. I mean, that's kind of what we're like, this consumer society we exist in. But Larry talked about these 4 other realms that I hadn't heard of, which is a more of a Mahayana idea. And he talked about these holy realms where we learn, when we read books, when we study Dharma, and this self-realization realm, when we begin to see how we're conditioned to react or want or not want. And we begin to recognize how we create our own suffering and be able to disengage from that. And then the realm that we've heard the term before is the Bodhisattva realm. And the Bodhisattva realm is the realm of the Bodhisattva idea in Mahayana Buddhism is the realm of, or the individual that foregoes their liberation until all beings are liberated, until all beings are free. And that's the realm where we begin to recognize how interconnected we are to everyone else. We're not alone. Again, part of our culture is this rugged individualism, which is so damaging. I did it myself. I, me, my. And we can't do it ourselves. I can't build my own house. I can't build my own car. I don't grow my own food. I grew up in New York City. There's very little I know how to do but move around cities. So it's like this mythology is so damaging. And so to recognize that we're all in this together, every single one of us. The Buddha talks about that in the precepts and non-harming, in sila, ethical behavior. How do we recognize when we're causing harm, and how do we work to end that and end harm for all beings? How do we cultivate kindness and compassion for all beings? And that's the realm of the Bodhisattva, and I really love it. We live with a heart imbued with these beautiful qualities of kindness and compassion and appreciative joy and equanimity. And there is a teacher, Diana Winston, who gave a talk a few years ago about being a bodhisattva today, how to be a bodhisattva in our daily lives. And I found a transcript of this, a transcript of her talk, and I just wanted to touch a few of the things she says, because I think they're really helpful as we move through this world today. And she said, Diana said that the idea of the bodhisattva is a wonderful and useful archetype for our work as socially engaged Buddhists, or just Buddhists who care about each other. Really simple. I think socially engaged Buddhism is just caring about one another and doing what we can to help each other, whatever that looks like for each of us. It's not like, here is how you do it. It's like, how do I do it right now where I am in the time I have? And so what Diana talks about, she talks about intention. Intention is so important in so much of the Buddhist path, so much of Buddhist teachings. I talked about this a few weeks ago. We incline our minds to go in a particular direction, perhaps to to act with as much wisdom, clarity, and compassion and kindness as we can. To have that intention to be there for our fellows, to be there for our siblings, all of our siblings as we move through this world. And to have a spiritual practice, because that helps us know ourselves. It helps to ground us. Whatever that looks like, it's so important to have something that's bigger than us. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Y'all are here practicing. I imagine that this stuff gives you some meaning or gives you some support as you move through your life. Let this be a spiritual practice, a place of support for you, the bigger level. I'm on the board of an organization in LA called Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice, and it's an interfaith organization, and we work with labor. We work with unions in their path for economic justice. And it kind of, this interfaith flavor gives it that extra sense of gravitas and importance. There's a moral imperative in this work that we do. And we also work with immigration. Like, we met a lot of those buses that Texas was sending a few years ago, and we helped folks find places to be supported. So it's, however it shows up for you, how do you help each other? And then I think this is a really important piece that goes to what Thich Nhat Hanh says. It's not, it's not just one thing, but we have to let go of our attachment to a specific outcome. We have to think in geological time. This stuff takes a long time. You looked and you see people, and this kind of ties in with another thing she says, to know history. People have been doing work like this for years, decades, I mean, centuries, hundreds of years, working against the things that imprison them, enslave them, hold them, just one person holding down another person for whatever reason. And we live, there's the racism and the misogyny and the homophobia and the transphobia and the xenophobia, all the stuff that we're so familiar with that permeates so much of how we move through the world. To recognize that and recognize that it doesn't take a moment. One of my favorite John Lewis quotes is that this is not the work of a lifetime, of one generation. It's the work of many generations to do this. So watch the idea of, like, I have to do this today. We just put one foot in front of the other. And when we act, as I said earlier, act with clarity, with wisdom, with compassion. And one of the most important things in this work as a bodhisattva is how we greet the world, greet today's world, is be in community. Whatever that looks like for you, who are your people? After the election, I just started seeing people going to groups, hanging out, having coffee, talking, just to be with other human beings. To have that connection, that recognition that, we're together, we're doing this together. I don't have to do it all. My brain thinks I have to do it all in every aspect of my life. Not just in this. It's like, I'll do that. And it's like, sometimes I have to just sit on my hands or say no. But so just to, I don't have to do it. None of us can do it all. So find community. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Find your community and know there's going to be obstacles. There's going to be doubt. There's going to be self-judgment. We're going to hit walls. But it's not, we're not looking for the one thing. Liberation comes in recognizing that which, just one breath at a time, one step at a time. It's the practice of a lifetime. And we dedicate our lives to live in a certain way. And then last week I was at a webinar. There was a conversation with Angela Davis, and she said this sentence that really landed with me, and I really like it. And she said, in order for us to engage in this kind of a long struggle, we have to imagine ourselves as much bigger than we think we are. And for me, that idea is the idea of the bodhisattva. The bodhisattva who is here, I used to think, because the traditional Zen prayer around bodhisattvas is, beings are numberless, I vow to save them. Suffering is endless, I vow to end it. So that's like a tall order, but we do it anyway because that's the wise and compassionate thing to do. So to imagine ourselves bigger than we think we are, imagine ourselves as the bodhisattvas, however that looks in our lives. The little statue I have of Guan Yin, and the statue of Guan Yin in the background on Zoom. She's this embodiment of compassion. And she hears the cries of the world. And she's sitting in this pose, which I love, of royal ease. She's got her knee up. She's got her arm on her leg. She's at ease, but she's ready to hear. She hears the cries of the world. She's ready to jump into action at any moment. Whatever makes sense at that time. And I really believe that's the invitation of this practice. That can be the invitation of this practice, is how do we show up? We're, as again, Thich Nhat Hanh says, we inter-are. His order of interbeing talks about inter-are. We're not alone. And then going back to that original quote, it's a long journey. The Buddha when they talk about the Buddha in the evening of his enlightenment, he said he saw all his past lives. He saw all his past lives. And the Jataka tales are tales of his past lives. They're like fables teaching particular aspects that he learned in a particular life. And when they teach the paramis, which are these 10 qualities: patience, loving kindness, determination, wisdom, generosity. They talk about how he spent many lifetimes developing each of these qualities. So these are all teachings to show we don't get here overnight. It's not a microwave miracle. This stuff takes time. I'm not dead. I'm not done. I say that all the time. I think that's, maybe that'll be my next tattoo. I don't know. So I'm not dead. I'm not done. So recognizing that's what we want to do is show up in this way. And so watch the tendency to have it be a certain way right now. Watch your dependency on the outside to be a particular way. How can you find ease on the inside? How can you find your liberation in this moment, right here, right now, regardless of the crows or the jackhammers or the parrots or the mariachi band or whatever it is that's going on outside? How can you find this groundedness, this steadiness internally that offers you the capacity to be present for what is outside? Because that's what we need to do. We need to build this capacity to be present for the world as it is right now. Right now, it's like this. That is a tattoo I have. Right now, it's like this. So these are a few of my thoughts, my friends, on this long journey that we're on and how we can show up today, how we can show up tomorrow. And thank you, as always, for your kind attention. And are there any questions, any comments, thoughts? I wonder if I have the burnout vow. Mushim Patricia Akeda up in East Bay Meditation Center has this burnout vow that maybe I'll close with. Yeah, she said, aware of suffering and injustice, I am working to create a more just, peaceful, and sustainable world. I promise, for the benefit of all, to practice self-care, mindfulness, healing, and joy. I vow not to burn out. So with that, I will end this morning, making a few announcements that for those of you in the Palm Springs area, Ian Chalice is offering an MBSR class, mindfulness-based stress reduction, which starts on Wednesday, is it, Val? Wednesday, and there's flyers in the back for that. And I think you could see it online if you're in Zoom, if you go to the ICD website. And then as there's a lot of volunteer opportunities. There's volunteers we can use here at the Sunday group. For those of you in the room, there's a sign-up sheet in the back if you want to help put this together. You don't have to set up chairs. You don't have to take them down. Mizell does everything, but just to be here and do a few things to set up and go down. So we can always do that. You can ask Valerie about that if you're interested. Online, we can always use a host for Sunday, the person who goes and like puts the link to the Dana that I'm going to do now because we don't have someone. If we can always use somebody online just to put something in the chat. Other people, if you want to help out with emails and website and things like that, please feel free to talk to me, talk to Terrence, because he's on the board. That's why I'm calling him out, or Rule, or Valerie. Yeah, and we can get your info and make sure that you are volunteering, which is a form of generosity, a form of Dana. And I know many of you have helped so much in the past. So thank you, and helping in the forward. And another way to support ICD and the teachers is to offer Dana, which is translated as generosity. And that's supporting the teachers, that's helping to pay the rent for this space, to take care of our other expenses. And it's really a way to pay it forward, to make sure that there's somebody here next week and the week after and the week after that. So it's really a gift of taking care of each other, taking care of the community. So there's that. And there's a couple of baskets in the back you'll see for ICD and for the teacher. We're gonna have a half day in person in Palm Springs on March 15th. And you'll get emails about that, and email, and it'll be on the website. So there'll be more information coming. But those of you who are asking, we are going to have those again every couple of months. So that's an extended period of practice, a morning of practice. So anything else, Val, or anybody, Terrence, Rule, or any other announcements? Okay, cool. Yeah. And I'm going to read to finish. I'm going to read with this beautiful dedication of merit that Ian wrote, called Going Forth. Going forth into this world so in need of light, may I bring all the kindness and wisdom I embody to each being and each situation that I meet. May the power of my practice today strengthen my resolve to be an agent of peace and justice in this world. Going forth together into this world so in need of light, may we together bring all the kindness and wisdom we embody to each being and each situation that we meet. May the power of our practice today strengthen our resolve to be agents of peace and justice in this world. We dedicate our practice for the liberation of all beings, the great, the small, the wise, the ignorant, the powerful, and the powerless. May all beings be liberated from sorrow and loss, hatred and injustice, scarcity and want, and every form of suffering. May our practice today be a prayer for peace, and may it benefit all beings without exception. May it be so. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day, and see you next week, maybe. Much love.